Have you ever had an opportunity to visit a museum that has a costume collection? I especially enjoy garments which were made in the late 1800s and early 1900s. The techniques and embellishments women at home as well as fashion houses used to create these marvelous clothes were often done by hand. I can only imagine the hours that were spent on each garment. My guess would be that you have more ideas than time, so we would like to share with you how to recreate one of those hand techniques by machine. We look forward to bringing inspiration and joy to you today. Let's begin our time by seeing how the old can become new. Welcome to my sewing room. Are not going to believe these two beautiful day gowns. Just so many gorgeous techniques. This is absolutely beautiful. You remember I told you that there were some things that looked like they were done by hand. Look at the beautiful bridging connecting these bias strips and the bridging connecting this tatting. A secret that was done by machine. More of the bridging out here on the sleeves connecting the tatting by machine. Look at the beautiful Madeira scallop down the front and the pretty machine embroidery and the beautiful bows and the roses and this magnificent slip that peeks out. You know, this is a day gown, but this could really be a beautiful christening dress too. And I want you to look at the bridging connecting the insertion, the bridging connecting the bias tubing, and all of this was done on the machine. On the little boy day gown, there is just one row, which makes it absolutely elegant for a little boy. The tubing connected with the bridging, and then the piping has been sewn down the front. Absolutely exquisite day gowns. Now, how is this done? Take the collar and sew around, of course, there's two pieces to the collar, sew them together, and then trim it down to about 1/8 of an inch. All right, turn the collar right side out and press. Now, here comes the magic. Take the collar that's already been turned and pressed. This is wash away sticky stabilizer. Put the collar on the inside and for one step, stick it back to its original paper. Come in and draw a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around the collar. Now, after you draw that, it's time to take the sticky piece in the collar and the tracing off. Take it off, and I want to show you in one step here. Then we're going to take the bias tubing and stick it down following the line. Okay, and then I'll pull the whole thing off. Now, there's a little secret here after I do that. You're going to need to take the piece of non-sticky paper, cut the hole out, and put it back on so your hands won't stick. All right, the bias tubing is there, so then you do your bridging stitch, and then this is wash away sticky stabilizer. And so after you've done the bridging stitch, you wash away the stabilizer, and it's all finished. I am so pleased to have as my guest today my very dear friend and business colleague, Connie Palmer. Connie is a sales and education specialist for Husqvarna Viking and a regular contributor to So Beautiful magazine. Connie, welcome to the show.
I'm always excited to come and be on the show. Oh, my
goodness, and this beautiful technique that looks like it was done by hand. Show us how, Connie.
That's right, because we have to do as much as we can on the machine.
Absolutely.
So it's really easy. You just have to kind of get the hang of it a little bit. But the main thing, a couple things that I didn't tell you up at the board is you have to decide how much extra you're going to have your collar be, because you have to cut that away. So if you have a 1/2 inch of trim, you're going to cut a 1/2 inch of your collar away before you cut out your collar.
Oh, okay.
That's very important.
Okay.
And another little trick is when you make your collar and turn it right side out, instead of shoving your fingers in there and wadding up the seam allowance, if you'll just take a point turner and just glide it inside there, that'll help you get your collar a lot flatter.
Turn.
Yeah, and then you won't have all those little kinks. Okay, so we talked about the stabilizer. It is a wash away sticky stabilizer. So we are going to open this up so we can get started. You're going to place your collar on the sticky.
Okay.
Then don't throw this out because we're going to use this a couple times. Sandwich it right back in there. And then you're going to mark your 1/4 inch seam allowance around here because that's where the bridging is going to go. Okay?
Okay.
Then, and that 1/4 inch seam allowance is your guide for you to put, you see, your tubing, because this is actually a bias tube. It's not just a bias tape, it's a bias tube, because it has to be finished on both sides. So now what we're going to do is we are going to sew right inside here. We're going to sew just a feather stitch. Okay? Now to keep all of that from sticking to your hands, remember I said don't throw this away. You're just going to trace around your collar and cut the paper out just roughly. It doesn't have to be nice. It's just a rough cut.
Okay.
Okay? And so we're going to sew that. But this is...
It's okay.
This is what it looks like when it's all finished, the collar. Now, you can also do straight strips, and you do exactly the same thing.
Okay.
You just put strips and strips and strips. This one is ribbon with tatting, and then this one is a ribbon, a different type of ribbon and lace. So you can do all types of things.
Okay.
So let's show you.
What kind of stitch? I can't wait
I
to see
know,
it.
it's so good.
I'm so excited.
This is exciting. It truly is. Now, you want to use a 12 weight thread because you have to have something a little heavier than regular thread.
Okay.
So now we're just going to put our foot down, and you just have to make sure that you're sewing from the collar into the bias tube. And you know, sometimes you might miss the tube. There's once in a while. I mean, you just can't cry about that.
Okay.
You just have to keep going because it's not going to fall apart. Since you've stitched, that string is still there. So all you have to do is take a needle and thread and just whip it together.
Okay.
And because your loop is there, so it's no big problem. So, and you don't want to use needle stop down because you want to be able to pivot as you go around, you see. So I suggest, this is what I suggest to people that, you know, want to try to do this, which is very simple. Just have to get the hang of swinging it around, is to draw your collar on a piece of paper. Draw your collar, move over 1/4 inch, draw another line, and sew on the paper.
Oh,
see, then you'll get the idea of how to turn.
Okay,
and it's really easy.
Okay, just to practice.
Just to practice.
I see.
Yeah, just to practice.
Now, that's a feather stitch you're
This
using?
is just a feather stitch, and this is just the way it comes out of the machine.
And you are doing that very slowly.
Right, you want to do it slowly, yes.
Okay.
So that you can pivot. Like anything else that you have to pivot, you do have to go a little bit slower. When you get on a straightaway, you can go a little bit faster, but when you're going around that first curve, you want to go a little bit slower so that you can pivot.
Oh, Connie, that's absolutely
Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, it's absolutely
And then you wash
beautiful.
it, and it's just gorgeous.
You wash it, and it really, really looks like it was done by hand.
That's right, it does.
Oh, Connie,
Thank
that's
you.
so exciting. And now Connie has some sewing inspirations to share with you. Connie, you just have to tell us about this magnificent creation.
Well,
Starting up here at the top, let's just see if we can even begin to capture and let
I
everybody
used
see.
a lot of vintage embroideries. Wonderful, beautiful. I can't even tell you how wonderful they sew off. I mean, they're just absolutely gorgeous.
Panel. In other
It
words,
has a
all of these
panel.
embroideries are antique
Yes,
embroideries reproduced by
They're
machine.
Right, reproduced by machine.
Now,
Which
this
is
was for your grandson, your great-grandson.
my great-grandson,
Carter.
Carter.
And look at
Aiden.
this. Let me just hold this dress up.
And it just kind of got bigger and bigger as we went.
Oh, there are just
You
no
know-
words to describe this dress, Connie.
And he looked like an angel in it.
Oh my goodness, it's absolutely
an
beautiful. Now, I also want to show the little bubble. This dress would be for the ceremony, and then the little bubble would be if you wanted to dress, if you wanted to take the dress off and
Yes.
do something
Or,
less,
or if you want to appease a lot of people.
make a lot of people happy to get
Right.
the dress off the boy. Okay.
Yes. That's what
We
that
know
was.
that.
Yes.
The moms with
Right.
some dads watching this will know.
Exactly.
Now, Connie, there are two special things here I want to share too. Tell us about this wonderful table runner.
This is a new embroidery that I had designed for a company, and it's supposed to look like lace.
Well, it
after
does
it's
look
embroidered,
like
right.
lace.
Only that particular one, instead of using a netting, I used just the linen fabric, so it was a color.
It's just beautiful. It looks like lace,
Yeah.
and yet it's
Right.
just stitched right on the linen
Right.
on this beautiful table runner. And I love pillowcases. Can't think of a nicer gift to give. And you have not only the lace with the netting behind it this time, machine embroidered, I might add.
Machine embroidered. It's total machine embroidery.
And then
no
that
shaping.
wonderful technique of the bridging. Now this time it's a little ribbon.
Just little pieces of ribbon.
And some tatting on the bottom on this pillowcase. Wouldn't this be
I wanted to see the different, for you to see all the different ways you can
with
use
that bridging?
it.
Connie, these are absolutely beautiful.
Great, I'm glad
Thank
you
you
enjoyed
so much for sharing all of these treasures.
Sure.
And now Connie has a so quick, so easy idea to share. Connie, I love your project.
Oh,
Go
thank
ahead
you.
and show our viewers.
I'll tell you, this is a quick project, and you can make these for any occasions: birthdays, weddings, animals, friends. This one, Christmas. I mean, there's just it's just incredible and fast, 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 fast. So all it is a vinyl pocket put on the front of the pillow, and then you can put or change the picture anytime you want
just
to.
slip the picture in there.
Slip the picture right in there. And then you add 2 pieces of ribbon, one which you embroider, the other one you tie a bow.
Oh my goodness.
So that's what I'm going to show you.
Here's a great bridesmaid.
Oh my gosh, it'd be fabulous. And this one is for a first birthday, so it could be first, second, third, just gobs and gobs and gobs.
Connie, where do you get that vinyl?
The vinyl you can get at any fabric store.
Okay.
So you can. That's very easy. The trick is to embroider on the ribbons. I'm going to run through that real quick for you. Now you're just going to pretend like this is hooped up.
Okay.
Each one of these. Right.
Gotcha.
The first thing you're going to do is baste in the hoop, so you'll know where to place the ribbon.
On the stabilizer.
On the stabilizer.
Okay.
Then you take your ribbon, fold it in half, and you're going to spray this with some temporary spray adhesive and stick it down. Then you're going to baste it again. You see how it's just basted right here? And so that bastes the ribbon right to the stabilizer.
In the hoop.
In the hoop. And then you embroider. And then you just remove everything, and it's ready to sew on the pillow.
Wow.
I mean, fast. It's very, very fast. So now, fold your pillow, your fabric in half, in quarters actually, and then fold this in quarters, and
Your
just kind of vinyl, and just kind of line it up so it's centered, and use some of this tape.
Looks like tiger
Looks
claws.
like
tiger claws.
Tiger claws, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that won't leave any residue on the vinyl, because some tape does leave a residue, so you don't want to do that. Then you just take a feather stitch, or any stitch, it doesn't matter what stitch. The most important thing with this is you want to use a Teflon foot. You have to have a Teflon foot. A Teflon foot. It has a little coating on the back.
Okay.
And then, of course, you're going to sew your plain ribbon on, you're going to sew your embroidered ribbon on, just above and below the pocket. And then take a big piece of ribbon, and you're just going to bar tack it. You see how I have it laying at an angle?
I do.
So that when you tie it, like
Bar
this.
tack it first.
Bar tack it first, and then when you tie it, see, then it's going to be at an angle. Okay? And then take another piece, lay it on top, sew all the way around, turn it right side out. And here's one for a wedding. This is the one we really like, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
See, here's the opening. Now you can either stuff the pillow, or you can buy a purchased pillow, because I just made a 12 by 12. So you just get a 12 by 12 pillow form. And there's your wedding pillow.
Faith, hope, and love.
And these are the best.
This is so cute. I love the Santa Claus, C-L-A-W-S, with the cat in it. And here is Santa Claus with your little dog, baby girl.
Baby girl.
Connie, this is just adorable. And you can just pull those pictures out.
Yeah.
Put
And
any
change
picture
them
you
from
want
year to
in
year.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, Connie, thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. And now we have some hand embroidery for you. I'm so happy to have as my guest today my friend Sandy Jenkins from Fredericksburg, Texas. Sandy is a needlework designer, all different types of needlework, and has been doing so for many years. She's an international teacher, and she's also a machine embroidery designer. Sandy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. I love being here. Today, I'm going to share with you some quilt labels that I've made. And, you know, Martha, I didn't know that it was very important to label my quilts or let people know when I made them, because everybody that I was concerned was still living and everything was great. But I have a friend who's really into genealogy, and being with her has made me realize that the next generation and the next might not remember who that came from. So I think it's very important to label them. And I brought today some labels to share with you. This is a cute little label that I designed to go on the back of my O. McDonald quilt, and it is a permanent part of this quilt. A label should, by the way, have who made it, the date, and if you want to, who it was for. This is Mr. and Miss McDonald, and I wrote in the clothing on the clothesline who made it and who it was for, so that was kind of fun. This is a new label that I made for the Nutcracker quilt. It has just a nice little sentiment and then my name and the date, of course. This label, and by the way, both of these are in red work, and they should match whatever design that you're doing on the front. It should match the back as well. So these two quilts have a lot of red, and this one is made for the Nursery Songs quilt that we just did in machine embroidery. It originally was called There's a Song in My Heart, and so I put, may you always have a song in your heart, love, Nanny, and then of course my real name and the date. One of the things that I thought, of course I can't go without teaching something, Martha, and I thought that I would show today is how to do lettering. Many times people do a very poor job of lettering because it's tiny, and it's hard for people to do tiny work, but I've worked it out to make it really easy, as I do most things. So I thought I would show a little bit about it. Instead of doing the regular outline or stem stitch, I did an open fly for any curve. And I think that you'll find that makes it really, really pretty. People kept saying, you know, I wish you wouldn't do such curly letters. They're so hard. So I have to make you learn to enjoy it. So this is the deal. I'm going to do an E. So I would start with maybe a straight stitch, and by the way, this only works for small letters, Martha. It should not be done for a large letter, okay? So if I were doing it in an open fly is like an open lazy daisy, okay? But it also could, it's really a stitch. It's the name of a stitch, but it also could be tacked twice instead of just once like a regular open fly, to make a curve, okay? It's to soften that V a little bit. If you came up again, you swung your thread or your loop in the different direction, and I'm making it really large, Martha. I would never ever make it this large. And by the way, all these designs that I brought today are stitched with one thread. Okay. So if you want very small, a small needle, a small amount of thread, and tiny stitches. But there's an E. If you want, like you were just doing a tail on a letter, like if you were starting an L, you could just do a little tiny open fly stitch. And open fly is good for a lot of things. So you would start with that little open fly, and you might continue with outline or stem stitch. Again, I might tack it more than once, and you would continue on. If you have just a little ways for a straight stitch, you might just come down with a long part of it. And again, I'm making it very, very large so that you can see very easily. And I might do like a lazy daisy for the little curl of the L and continue on. Okay. One of the really good examples of lettering is on the baby quilt, Martha. All of that is done with one thread, and it's a really, really fun way. You can see all the little curlicues, and it makes it really pleasing.
Thank you so much, Sandy.
Thank you.
And I do love the quilt labels, and I see that are you called Nanny by your grandchildren?
I absolutely
Some
am.
of my grandchildren call me Nanny too,
Perfect.
and I call my grandmother Nanny. Thank you so much,
great.
Sandy.
Thank you.
And now I have some machine embroidery to share with you. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today my dear friend Denise Applegate-Schober. Denise is with Cactus Punch. Denise, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Martha.
Look at this beautiful sweater. Designer.
This is an embroidery collection that we're going to show how you use felting, and felting is like the leaves and this yarn here are all felted on the sweater.
So you did the machine embroidery on the sweater and then went back and did the felting.
Right.
Beautiful. Oh, I do love this robin's egg blue and chocolate brown, Denise.
So the centerpiece is felted underneath. That's the roving that you see coming through here. And then the embroidery is done on top of that. So let's go over and I'll show you how we're going to do that, Martha.
Okay.
We need a stabilizer. So it could be a water-soluble stabilizer. It could be a tearaway stabilizer. Depends on the fabric that you're going to use. You'll need an embroidery collection that is made for felting, or an applique collection will work, and some roving, which is a natural fiber. And then these are barbed needles, because our machine, when we go to the machine in a minute, it uses barbed needles. So you're going to need some of those. Now, roving is a process and slightly unprocessed fiber. So this is a silk hanky here. Here we have a roving that is actually yarn that hasn't been twisted together. So if you knit, your yarn has been spun together, where this hasn't been spun. And then here's some raw roving that's just been colored. Now we're going to go to the machine, Martha, and we're going to show how this process works.
Cannot wait.
I've taken, and we have a hoop here that has an embroidery design outline sewn out in the hoop.
Okay.
And that gives us where we're going to felt. So
you took the hoop off the embroidery machine, brought it to your felting machine.
We did. And the barbed wires are going to go up and down, and they're going to punch the fibers into this fabric that we're using, and there is a stabilizer under the hoop. Now I have a little tool that I could use to kind of lay in the fiber in the spot that I want. I can trim around, or as you saw in the chocolate jacket, you can have the fibers go outside of that spot. And you just continue to felt it in. So let's go over here. I've got one more I want to show you.
So fascinating.
Sure.
No thread in those needles.
There is no thread. Have you ever thought we were going to sew with no thread?
No, I did not. Okay, show us some
Lots of fun. So the skirt, you may not have a felting machine. So the skirt was done with a felting tool, a hand tool, and this little sponge-looking item. And you take the felt, and this is actually a wool felt and a wool felted skirt that I made, and just do a little design on it, and then free motion embroidery over top of it with your thread.
Oh, no, wait, on the felt.
On the
free
felt.
motion on the felt.
Yep, it's a wool felt and free motion with regular thread on top of it after I use the roving.
What was the brush for?
The brush is if you use the hand tool, you're going to felt in the hand tool with the hand tool and this.
Oh, well, honey, that is absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much, Denise. And now I have a piece from my vintage collection to share with you. This beautiful Christine dress has so much history I'd like to share with you. The style that has the scoop neck for the baby and the short sleeves for the baby was prominent around 1840 to about 1880. It looks like the baby would freeze, but actually I guess they didn't. Anyway, that has the gathered lace around the edge and the Swiss edging, and then Swiss insertion. And notice that the bodice is a long to the waist bodice. The skirt is beautiful with its center panel of horizontal pieces of the Swiss insertion and then the Swiss edging that goes down the side of the panel. This is a very long dress, and I'm going to hold up the skirt to let you see the bottom. The center panel, as you can see, has a number of tucks on the top. This is edging, not insertion, but edging right below it. Then more tucks, and then 2 rows of Swiss edging. Then it has the Swiss edging that goes along the side. Now look at the back. The back simply has a number of tucks. It isn't fancy in the back, just that front panel. It has beautiful tucks in the back and goes down to the Swiss edging on the bottom. I'm going to turn it around to show you that the neckline, as you've seen so many times here in the with my pieces, has a drawstring at the neckline and a drawstring at the waistline. And I love these clothes. I have a sweet letter here from my friend Wanda Jones. I have gone to Cairo, Egypt to help a friend teach ladies that will teach other ladies to sew and make uniforms for a home health care business. I spent 3 weeks there in 2007 and 2 weeks earlier this year. My friend Wanda Jones is from Texas. Wanda, I'm so happy that you've gone on this long, long trip to help ladies learn how to sew. Thank you very much for you, Wanda, and for all of you ladies who are teaching others how to sew. Thank you so much for joining me in my sewing room today. I certainly hope you will come back next time.